Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can create a beautiful Next.js portfolio for yourself using Favor Motion, Three.js WebGL, and Firebase. So let's dive right into it. The first step that we need to do is create a Next app using yarn create Next app. Now this is going to ask you some questions like the name of your project. I'm going to say, since this project is a static website, it is not using any data. So I'm not going to use a script for this. Yes, for ESLint, I'm going to use Tailwind. We are going to use SRC directory because that will help us organize our code better. And we are also going to use app router because that is more performant in comparison to Page's approach of Next.js. And we are not going to rewrite our aliases. This is installing our dependencies. So I'll cd into my demo portfolio and open my Visual Studio Code for that directory. So we already have a boilerplate here and we are going to clean that up because we don't need any of these default files. All right. Now we have a clean slate and we are going to run yarn diff to see what we have right now. We are going to get an error because we don't have anything in app router. So the next step is basically creating two files in our app directory, which is layout.jsx and page.jsx. JSX is basically an extension that tells our compiler that this is going to be a React file. And here we are going to export our default function. I'm going to call this home, but this will be the home for our portfolio. And this will return some empty element for now. Similarly, there is defined export default, root, layout, children. This is also going to take children as a prop because all our pages are going to be passed as children to this particular component. We are going to define English as language, and I'm also going to define that as default class name because that is going to be the theme for our portfolio. If you want, you can also add a toggle and change the theme for your portfolio using that toggle, but I'm going to keep it dark because I don't think light theme is required for a developer portfolio. Next, we'll have a body tag. And inside this, we have our children prop. So now we should have an empty page. All right. So there are going to be 4 sections in our portfolio. Let me show you my portfolio, which I'm going to recreate here. There is going to be an intro. Then we'll have our project section. Then we'll have our experience section, and then we'll have our contact me section. All right. So for that, in our page, let's change this to main tag element, and we 4 sections here. Now we need some CSS. So we created folder called assets, under which we'll create another folder called CSS, and we'll create a global CSS file. Here we'll firstly define the snap scrolling for our portfolio so that when user scrolls through his mouse or on the mobile through his touch, he'll directly be taken to the next screen. There won't be any intermediate scroll space. So we'll do that by defining here a height for our main element, which is going to be 100 VH. So basically taking all the space vertical space on your device. Overflow Y will be scroll, and scroll snap type will be Y mandatory. And each section inside our main element should have snap aligned as start. Okay, so that is not working right now because you also need to define height for each section. So it's going to be height under VH. And let's also define some padding. It's going to be 10%. Let's define separate field for left, right, and top and bottom. So we have a padding for left and right, but not for top and bottom. Let's also keep this media screen and match with 768, padding 0.5% because we want less padding on smaller devices. Now we need to import this CSS file in our layout, in our root layout. We'll do that by saying import global CSS. Let's also define a background. Let's also define zero padding for our body. So we need to import our Tailwind utilities here. Now we are seeing our background colors. Here we see don't want scroll by bit. Instead, we want mandatory. Yeah, now the scroll snap is working. See? All right. So let's go back to our code and create components folder under which we have our different sections. So there's going to be intro.jsx. We are going to have experience.jsx. We are going to have contact.jsx, and we'll also have projects.jsx. All right. We are going to do the same thing here. So we got down to projects. Return. Let's do the same for intro and same for experience. Add the same for contact. All right. So that's it. Now let's go to our page, one page. Let's import those components. So import intro from components intro, import projects, import areas, import contact. And instead of these four, let's start with intro. So intro will have our first section. In this section, we have a div. Let's give this a flex class where justify center items center. And this is our intro section. So for the dot background that we have in my portfolio, so you see this dot background in the portfolio. For that, we are going to use UI library by the name Aceternity. We also want a black background for our whole body. In body, we are going to specify background color. We go to our favorite config files and we'll define one function here, which is add variables for colors. We need to use flatten color palette here. You can import flatten color palette from Tailwind module, from Tailwind CSS library, flatten color palette utility. Now we are going to use this inside our plugins. This function will basically flatten the color palette so that we can use that as CSS variables inside our properties. Next, you need to add another plugin inside our plugins for grid and dot background. For that, we'll need this mini SPG data URI library, and you can install that using yarn add command. Once you have this function here and you have this installed, you can just add bg dot the color and the opacity. If we go to a browser, we should be able to see a dot background like this. The next thing we want is we want our, just like we have in this portfolio, and we also want it to animate from left to right. Let's do that. For animation, we install Framer Motion. We can do that by yarn add Framer Motion, import Framer Motion and animate presence. We'll wrap our section around animate presence, and we'll also specify mode to wait so that it waits for it to load before starting our animation. And we'll also turn this into motion and motion section. Next, we specify our initial entry point and our animated point. So we'll specify our initial opacity as 0 and X position as -100. We'll also specify our ambient position, which is going to be opacity 1 and XZ. Our transition duration, I'll keep it as 0.5 seconds. Let's also create a .bs code folder so that it will automatically format our file on save, but color is not defined. So let's define that as X white so that we can see something. And you refresh that and you see that ABC moves from left to right. So let's define the content for our intro section. First, let's define a space of T using tailwind. Then we have one day for our image, src images logo SVG. I'll keep the width as 150 and height as 175. Our logo, and we'll import this image on next image. Behind the scenes, Next is optimizing this image for lazy load and some other size optimizations. Like making the location. For icons, I'll be using React icons. Yarn add React icons. Let's also install tabular icons. You can do that by yarn add tabular icons React. For now, let's specify text right for all our text so that we can at least see it. So this is taken as two block level elements. We need change that using Flexbox, and we add some tab here. Now this particular section, I wanted to align this towards the end, so I specify self align end, and I'm also going to specify a space of y of 1 for anything which is in this particular day. Along with making web, there is going to be that pin bar. Let's give this a size 4, and then should have here. We need to specify it as s to consider bracket 4. Next, we have our social icons. Okay, there is also we have LinkedIn, Twitter, Breakup, and YouTube. This Okay, it will show this nice vanish animation, and then it will show this subscribe to newsletter. We'll also have some validation in place. So the input is invalid, it will show that invalid email address. Let's create a shared UI library under which we'll create our input.jsx. I'm just going to copy paste this from my original repository. You can find the code for this in the description and on my open source portfolio template. So there are some utilities missing, like this cn function, which will basically merge our class name. So for that, we'll create utils directory. Under that, we'll create cn.js. This will contain this cls6 and event merge function. Let's install those. Let's define our props here. So one is these folders. Followed by the views. Another is on change. Let's create a state variable to hold our email value and import our new state hook from React. The function that we need to define is subject. We're define validate email method. I'm going to copy my projects here on Subway. Yeah, first try to validate our Subway. For now, just use the default pop-up provided by JavaScript API for notifying the user that the email is invalid. If it is valid, we are going to add that to our Firebase database. Let's go to our utils and create Firebase.js. Now we need to install Firebase in our project. We can do that using yarn add Firebase. And once Firebase is installed, you need to import initialize app and get Firestore. And we need to define our Firebase config. Start initialize. For course, we get Firestore. Inside our Firebase config, we are going to define our API key or domain project ID, project storage bucket, the messaging sender ID, app ID, and measurement engine. Let's import our database into section. We also need to import collection and add top Firebase Firestore. Here we'll make an API call to Firebase to add our email to newsletter subscriptions collection inside the database that we just specified. And we are going to alert that subscribed successfully. So this should be working now. Let's try this. The animation is working. And the validation is also working. We wrap this inside another div and we specify empty 4 can also specify this as flex and expects SM. All right. Now we have this tagline. We have this border around the image, the color, and some power effects. Let's add those. We also have some animation around our text. So when it loads, it converts it from Japanese text to English. So we also need to do that. For that, first we need to go to our CSS and import our fonts. These fonts are defined inside asset fonts. Let's add this border first. For our image, we are going to define class name. And the class name should be to VG secondary 200 rounded Excel and custom shadow or 200. Now let's define our theme colors inside our Tailwind file. We have this primary, secondary, and tertiary color inside our theme. Let's go back, and we are already seeing our border around image. Now the next step is basically creating that Japanese animation. So that I'm going to copy paste my decoder text component here. And we are just going to use that. I'm going to import decoder text from our UI library. And we have for the text, it will contain text prop, native insert, and this will also take delay. Let's also specify that as 500 milliseconds. So that animation is there. We'll do the same for India text. Let's specify our font size for mobile and for laptop. We use text-based class, text tertiary. Now let's add this tagline. And for that, I'm going to use hero highlight component from my UI library. We include that just like our report. So now the animations are there. Now we are going to add the icon which will indicate that the user needs to scroll. Bottom line icon from React icons. And we are going to accept one prop inside intro called scroll indicator title, based on which we are going to show our icon. We are going to make this absolute. Bottom 10 led 50%. We are going to hide this on smaller strings. We are going to animate this using Tailwind class animate pulse. Let's give this an opacity of 30, which is basically 0.3. Text tertiary 400 and size 8. On click, we basically want to scroll to next section. So use window.scroll. And this will take some options like top position, which is going to be window.inner height, and behavior. We are going to go its weird. Now let's see. We don't have, so we need to also pass this prop from our page.jsx. Let's import use state. Also, we should use client directive here because we are not using any server side rendering. Let's import. Okay, so our icon is there and it is working. Now let's add that 3D blob that we have. For that, we are going to create a UI component. So that will actually create a folder. I'll call it displacement here. For this, we will need two GLSL files, which you can find on my GitHub. These GLSL files basically define the shape, texture, and colors for that sphere. So the code for the displacement sphere, you can find it inside my GitHub app. Let's create our background component, which is going to enclose this displacement sphere in a suspense component. Background.j6. It is going to use hydrated poke to see if we have loaded the application or not, and then it is going to display our displacement sphere only if the app is already hydrated. You also need to install Three.js for this because our UI component displacement sphere. So we need to install 3 and 3 std. Let's install those. And now let's import our background component inside layout.jsx. Since we are using raw GLSL files and we are also using this Breakup raw files, we need to specify that inside our next config. Inside the next config, we are going to specify some webpack settings like the strict mode, and for webpack we are going to say that GLSL, which is required for our 3D models, GIB, and WAV2 files, which is required for our font files. So we are going to use road order for that. Now let's see. Can't resolve a road order, so we also need to install that using yarn. And it's installed road order. So background is default. So we need to import it like this. Now the only problem is the Z index of our intersection is less than our background. So we should fix that using, we are going to say position relative. So 20 is working. So there you have it. Your intersection is ready. Now we need to add a navbar over here. In UI library, I'm going to paste my navbar component from my original GitHub repository. We need to pass some props to this navbar, which is nav items basically. Let's define our nav items. I already have a list, so I'm going to paste that. Now let's import our navbar any layout. So there you have it. Your navbar is ready. We don't have anything in projects, experience, or contact section yet, but your intro page and your navbar is completely ready. Now let's move ahead to our project section. In components, we have this projects. Before going to projects, I'm going to paste my project summary component from my GitHub repo to UI library, and we are going to use that inside our projects. So because we are going to track our scroll position so that we know when to animate, we are going to use forward ref for that. And to disable this warning, we need to go to our ESLint file and disable some rules. So we move over to our ESLint file and I'll copy paste my usual boilerplate for ESLint file. And this is going to be CJS. We also need to go to our page.jsx and track what sections of our page are in the visible range. Let's define that in our page.jsx. It's important to use ref and use it here. So project section is ready. Now we go ahead with experience section. So we will go our components, experience. We'll define our experience in this experience data JSON file. Then we have this SVG for this icon. We also need some stress CSS, which we are missing right now. There should be a vertical line here. So we are missing a journey line class, I'm guessing. Let's see where I define that. On it, let's go to SRC asset CSS delivery. And let me just paste that class. Yep, that vertical line is now there. The last section is contact section. And there we have it. That's how you make this beautiful responsive portfolio using Next.js framework, WebGL, and Three.js. I have skipped some parts. For that, you can check out the open source code from my GitHub repository, and you can play around with that code and see how you can change the color of the website, how you can change some animations. Maybe you want to customize it for yourself. I hope you learned something valuable. For following along our journey, do give us a subscribe and like. If you have any questions or comments, do let us know in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.